Alrighty, everyone. So today we're sitting in Ho Jiak in Town Hall, Junda's playground here, and I'm here with Junda Khoo. So, Junda, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so how this one came about was our wives actually trained together at the gym. And then obviously it's one of those things with overseas Chinese or overseas Malaysian, Asian people where it's like you hear an accent and then it's like straight away you know where that person's from.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, that's pretty much akin to how I guess Angela and Sharon struck up their friendship. And then, Ange obviously mentioned to Sharon that I do a podcast, and I was curious to obviously get you on and share some of your insights because I think, it's cool to sort of be able to share some of those stories as well.
Yep.
So you were born in Malaysia, right?
Yes, born in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur,
Yep.
1986. And started in Malaysia too. I was Form 4 or 16. And then I left and I came to Sydney and I did high school here, year 11, year 12. And I went to university and then worked and then, here I am.
Yep. So I guess what would be some of your earliest memories about growing up in Malaysia at that point in time?
Oh, definitely family.
Yeah.
Family from both sides, especially my dad's side, they're pretty big, right? Like my granddad had 13 siblings,
Yep.
and then my dad and them had another 6, and just having a family gathering every, I guess, second week where everyone just comes to the table to see my grandmother, to just share a meal,
Yeah.
right? And back then, as a kid, it was definitely something that I took for granted. Well, I mean, I did enjoy it. We played, we had a lot of good food and all kind of stuff. But obviously, after coming to Sydney and starting my family here, and we're pretty small, we're only 5 of us, those are the things that I look back and I reflect and I go, oh, wow, like how lucky I was to have all of that back then.
So to break that down a bit, so your grandparents, how many of them as siblings from your grandparents' level?
So my granddad had 13.
13.
13.
Yep.
Grandma had quite a few, but we didn't really see that side.
Yep.
And then on my mom's side, that was another, I think, 3 or 4.
Yep.
But then when it came down, like just the immediate family alone, like my dad and his brothers and sisters, there were like 6 of them.
6 of them, yeah.
And then if each one of them had 3, that would be like 20 over
20.
of us cousins together. And like, when you get together for dinner, it's like grandma, granddad, let's say 6 of the adults and their spouse, that becomes 12, and then 20 of us kids just around, like, it's big.
It's crazy, right?
I mean, it's big. Like in Malaysia, when we were there, it seemed quite normal because there are a lot of big families there too.
Yep.
But then, migrating to Sydney and then, having a family dinner of 5 all the time right now,
Yeah.
you just go, wow, that was actually, huge.
Yeah. So same thing. So similar thing. My mum's side, she's the last of 10. So 10 siblings.
Yep.
Yeah, and she's the youngest of 10. And I guess so originally from Malaysia as well. She was from Batu Pahat.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So then my mum's side have like farms,
Yep.
for like the palm sugars and,
Yep.
that sort of thing.
Yep.
But yeah, and one of my cousins is actually Tony Pua, the MP.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's my cousin. Yeah.
Oh, he's in, I've heard of him. He's running in PJ right now, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's I think he stepped down from some of the more senior things.
Yep.
But yeah, like it's interesting because his goal was always politics, and he did quite well out of IT stuff.
Yep.
And then, but his end goal was always to try and like do something for Malaysia.
Change the country.
Yeah, we'll try and change it for the better, right? And
yeah.
like as you can probably attest to, growing up in Malaysia, like when there is. People wouldn't think about it, but like there is racism in Malaysia as well towards people that have, I guess, more Chinese descent. And did you experience any of that growing up?
Not so much. I think for us, we grew up from a poorer family. So like even my parents, my grandparents, they ran from China and they were put into a government housing in Penang. And I mean, like when you're coming out from that background, I guess, everyone's same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then obviously growing up, my dad then moved us to KL and, we stayed in PJ. And I went to primary and high school there. For me, it wasn't so much about racism. I think it was more about bullying. And I got bullied quite a bit when I was a kid. I was big, I was fat, I was chubby. And I even wrote it in my book that when I was 14, and I think back in Malaysia, like schools back then, they had all these gangs, right? Like gangs, and there were actual gangs. Like they would actually start fights with machetes and
sticks.
And sticks, and our teachers would get slashed trying to stop the fight on kind of stuff. So it was pretty wild back then. And so I got bullied. One of the things that actually happened to me was when a group of like this guy had something on with me, and then he waited for me after school one day with, I don't know, 8, 9 of them over there, all in a line, and they wanted me to fight him one-on-one. And I was just like, nah, that's stupid, that's crazy, I'm not gonna fight, right? Like, I was chicken, right? I was scared to death, right? And you just go, I'll tell you what, I'll let it go if you let all of us give you a slap on your face. And I just went, oh, what am I going to do? I'm not going to fight. So I stood there, and all of them slapped me. And
How many?
9, I think.
9 of them?
8 of them, 9 of them, right outside school in front of everyone else. Like, all the other students were watching, all that kind of stuff. And, I mean, that was one of the more, I guess, traumatic memories that I had. But it also made me, I guess, who I am today, right? It has always been sort of like a driving factor to want to do better, right? And to actually like wake up and just prove them what you can do. And and I know I actually haven't said this on any platform before, but I recently, I think about a year or 2 years ago, I actually wanted to find out where my bully was. I wanted to, because I still couldn't let it go. I couldn't bury the hatchet, right?
Yeah.
And I went back. I asked a couple of my friends who were, pretty high up in Malaysia, and I gave them the name. Remember this guy? Start finding him for me, and it didn't take them long. He is actually on the police wanted list for murder and rape, and so he's on the run.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So like again, when I say bullies, like they're real bullies. Like
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because, I find that like even though that when you reflect on these things, it's very traumatic, right? And I'm sure like if I was to intrude a little bit and ask, so like when you went home from that experience, like I'm guessing you would have just buried your head in your pillow and just cried, right?
Yeah, a bit. I think I cried on the spot, but I think going back, it was more of a rage, like in a
you feel helpless.
Yeah, I feel helpless, and I want to do something about it. And like back then, even let's say I was good, like I was a teacher's favorite whatsoever. Even the teachers felt helpless, like they couldn't stop it. And like even I had friends where they got into all these gang bullies and gang fights, where like the dad had to come in to pick him up from school every day, and like if they want to start a fight, the dad actually had to start fighting these other kids to stop it from happening, right? So and for me it was more of like, so what actually happened is, and again I wrote this in the book, was the year after that, or right after that incident, my 14-year-old self decided that the way to stop this was to join another gang to get protection. And that's actually what I did. And because of that, I actually got into a whole lot of trouble as well, and got caught shoplifting and all that kind of stuff. And I guess that was the point where my dad goes, if you continue this and you keep this up in Malaysia, there ain't going to be a future for you. And so that's when he deported me to Sydney, Australia. And for both things, of course, he like that. I think that was the catalyst, like a trigger. I think he's always wanted to send me abroad for studies anyway. And so like that sped things up quite a bit, because usually for us, we usually come over after high school or after, I guess, the first year or second year of college, like at Monash, and then you come here for university and stuff like that. But yeah, it was very different. I literally left school in January or February, literally after all that things happened when school started, just went, you're out, gone, go to Australia.
So you're like when you joined the gang, it sort of you descended quite quick then, like in what you're talking like in a span of a few months or something, where you start getting to like more and more serious things.
Yeah. So I climbed. So I guess the one thing I had about me was I, in a way, I've always been a leader as well. Like from primary school, I'd be like the president of like the soccer club or the, chess club. Two very contrasting, but yes, president of the chess club and soccer club as well. And then so same thing. I always had this I guess, drive and ambition to, like, if I'm going to do something, I want to climb to the top.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that was the same thing with the gangs. Like,
Yeah.
I went in, and I played politics maybe, like, to get in with all the leaders and all that kind of stuff, and then climbed up pretty quick. And so that's why the shit that I was doing was pretty serious as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Were you a fan of the Guang Tai movies?
The Young
Like
and
Young and
Dangerous.
Dangerous.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So for people that don't know, okay, so this is like classic Hong Kong cinema, but there's a series called Young and Dangerous, and every Asian guy, like Junda and I, growing up, especially in that era, like we would watch these movies, and these guys like Ikan Cheng would have like long hair, and they'd be like absolute gangsters, but they portrayed it in such a way that you aspired to be like these guys.
Yeah.
Right? And it's almost like glorifying that gangster life. And it looks so cool to be able to go out to restaurants with your mates and just eat and almost like live like kings.
Yep.
Right? But the real circumstances is actually, starts from quite sad, sort of beginnings. It's like because you don't have enough.
Yeah.
So, and then, you don't have enough. So then you're trying to fight for things that you want to try and achieve in life. It's kind of funny that, when you talk about like that bullying incident, like I think anger is actually a really, really strong motivator. And I feel like, it's like as much as people say, you should never try and lose your temper and things like that. But like if you can channel that like rage, that anger, that feeling of like not having enough, as long as you don't allow that to consume you and you can actually like channel into something positive, like it accelerates your development and growth, right? Like in the same way that you're talking about, you get into a gang, you're gonna be good no matter what the task is, right? You just choose to want to excel at something. Unfortunately, it's like a negative thing.
Yep.
But it's actually really nice that your dad was able to sort of recognize that and try and pull you out of that situation. Out of curiosity, what did your parents do for work?
So my dad actually had his own packaging businesses. So he was, like back in Malaysia, it was very labor intensive. Say you were to buy a bottle of shampoo and you get a mini bottle of shampoo for free, he would literally take the two of them, put it into a plastic sleeve, get one of those heat gun and like blow it to it shrinks, like it wraps it up, and then repack it again and then set it out. And he would do that, those kind of jobs, like I think he paid like 0.001 cent, like a hundred or a tenth of a cent per job. And, that was his business, yeah.
Do you have any memories of like, going to his workplace or seeing,
plenty.
seeing him work?
Yeah, plenty. During the school holidays, he would take us in quite a bit. And so from a very young age, I was working, like he would actually go, if you work an hour, this is how much these guys get paid, and this is how much you're going to get paid if you want to work. So me and my brother and I, we just jumped into the production line, sat down there and just started packing. And then, being, kids of the boss or stuff like that, the thing that we really look forward to was actually lunch, because his factory was so far away from home back then. It was like an hour or so. And so we rarely got to eat the food around that part. And it was only during school holidays where we could go, work, have lunch with dad, and then come back home. Yeah. And so those were actually really, really fond memories. And I think, a lot of the foundation was built then, that you had to work for money. Like, it was just instilled in us from my dad.
Yeah, it's always an interesting one, especially like when you have parents that like the only way that they know to try and establish themselves, and especially like thinking about your grandparents, right? They migrated from China, so they're in low income housing, like they're basically starting from nothing, right? And so then the only way to sort of how to provide for your family is to work really, really hard, get whatever job you can, and just do it as best as you can to try and generate some kind of a living, so that you're sort of almost hoping that the next generation can do better, And then I always I sort of reflect on this, because I think it's kind of interesting, because like we as dads, we want the best for our kids, and then it's like when your kids have grandkids, if you're still around, of course you want the best for your grandkids too. But like, how far do you go with it, right? You're never going to meet somebody that's 5 generations below you, just like you don't remember anybody like 4 generations above you.
Yep.
Right? It's when I sort of think about it, it sort of spins me out a little bit.
Yep.
Because like, what do we, like, when is enough?
Yeah. So the way I see it and the way I reflect on that is more of like, I've always been so thankful for my upbringing, right? That my grandparents ran from the war to start a family in Malaysia, and then they had my dad. And of course, the only way my grandmother didn't know how to work, she didn't know how to make any income, but she know how to show love by cooking all this delicious food and spending time with you. And then my dad wanted to for the next part for his family, he wanted to create a better version of his family, like his mom and dad. So that's why he worked so hard to provide, to put food on the table, to buy a house and all that kind of things. And so he probably, because of that, and at that time, so he would probably lose out on, say, time with the kids because he was working so hard. And so then I then grew up with a house, roof under my head, and got all of that. He saved up enough to send me to Australia and all that. So like, then it becomes a better version of that previous family, right? And so that's why then for me right now, what I do for my kids is more of like, I see what my dad didn't quite give us, the time and all kind of things. And so I try to balance, work and family and all kind of things. So then I try to create a better version of my upbringing as well. So I think it's just, it will constantly, as we go down the family chain, I think that will always happen. And in the sense that, like, if you're a family person, you would actually just try to make or create a better, like, not so better, but like a version that I guess you didn't quite have. And again, it's how, I guess in a way, that's how you build. So no money, a little bit of money, and then you just pass it on.
Yeah.
And, that's the way I see it. So yeah, like, I mean, my kids, in a way, doesn't really have to live that hard, doesn't really have to work that hard. They grow up in Australia, and, it's different to Malaysia where, I guess education was a very important thing in Malaysia. Like, you know what I mean? Like, in Malaysia, as a kid growing up back then, like, if you didn't get good results, there would pretty much be almost no future for you, right? Whereas in Australia, it's so different where you can or you don't. It's a choice. It's up to you. It's as long as you have a good and balanced and healthy life, and as long as you're happy. So again, everything, I guess it changes as you go down the family chain, and of course as time changes as well.
Yeah, it's a very it's an interesting one to think about, because I think when we look back at oftentimes, especially in Chinese movies and things like that, the way it's sort of portrayed is that you always have like, say, one generation that builds the wealth, the second generation tries to maintain it, but then there's always that shitty grandson who is useless in that sense, like he's a gambler or like loves playing around with women too much, like all this kind of stuff. And it's a very interesting one to sort of go through that sort of almost like a generational dynamic, right?
Yep.
And like, I think as parents, you're always just trying to do the best that you can, but you're also playing the hand that you're dealt, right? You can't really change, what are the cards. You can only really change what you choose to do with those cards. So I do want to touch on something before we get into the, what happened when you came to Australia. But I think you also met Sharon when you were still in Malaysia, right?
Yep.
Did you guys go to high school together? Or
Yeah. So we were from the same high school, Form 1. So we were in the same class when we were 13, right? And we got together when we were 15, and we've been together ever since till now.
Wow.
Yep.
So then that would have been pretty hard to manage over the years. Did she come to Australia as well, or when did she come?
She finally came to Australia when we were 21, I think. 21 or 22, I can't really remember.
6 years.
Yeah, a couple of years. But, back then, like with high school and everything, we would always have summer break, and then, I would always fly back to Malaysia to see her. Back then, at least, there was some sort of technology. There was MSN Messenger. Yeah, we already had SMS. Like, we even had SMS already.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too bad. And, again, for me, like, in a way, like, so maybe because of the upbringing again. Like, my grandmother had only one spouse or one boyfriend or one husband all the way. That was my granddad. My dad had same thing, the one mom all the way to now. And I think just because of what we see when we grow up, we're actually, I guess, it's somehow part of it, or maybe it's DNA, I don't know. But like, then come down the next generation, me and Sharon, one girlfriend, one spouse all the way. My brother with his girlfriend and married all the way as well. My sister has, that one guy as well. And we just, a lot of people look at it and say, like, maybe you are, like, loyalty is a good, like, strong part of our gene. But I guess it also like both ways where like the other way I see it is like if I'm a penguin, I met the one.
Yeah.
We just stick for life, and so I was lucky, very lucky.
In that sense, though, like I think there's obviously been a lot of challenges along the way, right?
Yep.
And so I sort of want to digress into this because I think it's probably something really interesting to talk about in terms of like how did you guys sort of work through, because when you think about those formative years, like 15 to 21 they're very formative years. I think a lot of people go through some pretty big life-changing moments, like when you leave high school, when you go to uni, when you get your first job. Like, because your environment changes, it causes a really distinct change, could cause a really distinct change in your personality as well, because now you have other influences and you're realizing that, perhaps, this wasn't the only way, there's this and there's that and all those sorts of things. But I think there's I guess, in terms of relationships, I sort of like this idea that there's two different types of relationships. There are relationships which you call cornerstone relationships, where you're in this relationship and you're growing together with the other person. And then there are relationships, and this isn't my concept, I stole this from someone else, but there are relationships which are called capstone relationships, where you as a person, you already know who you are, and that relationship just sort of sits on top of that because you're both very aware of who you are, right? So I guess for you and Sharon, like obviously getting together at that young age and then choosing to really invest in each other and stay the course, right? That to me is like a cornerstone relationship where you're building and your worlds are built upon each other. I'm sort of curious about how you guys, keep things like, fresh and loving despite all the challenges and all the years and any problems that, stories that you might want to share about the problems that you might have occurred.
Well, problems are problems. There's plenty of problems. We argue and it wasn't just go like, I know I say like, after 25 years, I'm still with her. But of course, we broke up a couple of times. We got back together. We broke up, we got back together. Of course, there was plenty of problems. There was arguments, there was fights, there was just like all other couple, right? Of course, there were plenty. But then I guess like the point that you made, cornerstone relationship, building it together, I think that was what was more important to me, that, she always challenged me, she always pushed me, and like we were growing together as a couple. And even till like today, I wouldn't have what I have. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if she didn't I guess do what she does, which is being a full-time housewife, staying at home, looking after 3 kids, and she gave up her career so that I could pursue mine. And these are things that I guess is what makes us so strong as a couple, because we help each other grow. And
you're a team.
We're a team, pretty much. And again, I said, my mom was a working mom as well. They had to, and I didn't have all of that growing up. And for me, when I look at my kids, and you have a full-time mom to look after you guys, drop you off, pick you up from school, and all kind of things. Like I had to walk 45, 50 minutes to get to school, if I missed the bus, or like when I came home, no parents were at home. Like I just had my own kids, had to go home. There was no food. I had to cook instant noodles and stuff like that. It was very different. Whereas like, my kids these days get picked up. Oh, I want KFC. All right, sure. I want boba. Sure. It's just so different. It's lucky. But then again, so we make a pretty damn strong team.
Yeah. Okay. So moving to like when you got to Australia, actually, before we get to that, because I know that your grandma was a big influence in terms of like, the flavors and things like that. Do you mind sharing some insights into like some of those memories, whether it was Chinese New Year or whether it was just a normal meal? Like what were some of the things that, really fostered that love for food for you?
Yeah. So the best way to explain this is, so because there were 6 siblings, what grandma and granddad used to do last time was they would go to, say, the eldest son's house, and they'll stay there for a week or 2 weeks. And then they move to the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So even for us, we were fighting for grandma, right? We were like, we only get her 2 weeks in like, say, 2 months, right? But then when she came and she stayed at her house, of course, she would do all of the cooking, all the marketing, and all, like going to the markets to buy all that kind of stuff. And it's very easy. Like the biggest memory, and I think everyone knows this about grandma's cooking, is that even back then, growing up as a kid, like you would sleep in and all that kind of stuff. But the moment she goes into the kitchen, doesn't matter what she does, fried garlic or fried onion or whatever, the smell travels from the kitchen all the way to your bedroom or your study room or whatever it is. You smell that, you know she's cooking. And that's when I'd always just run straight down to the kitchen. How can I help? What can I do? And, her cooking, to be honest, were actually very, very simple, basic stuff. Like deep fried, we call it kampong fish, which is... Sardines. We just, some turmeric and some salt, or she'll make the paste for a curry or vegetable and stuff like that. But then it would always be the prep where she has to deep fry garlic and onion and all that kind of stuff, where the moment she does that, you're like, yep, we're gonna it's just right there in your memory where you go, it's gonna be delicious. Yeah.
Isn't it funny? I feel like there's always something to when food is prepared for you, you can make, as an example, even if it's just something simple like eggs on toast, right? You can make eggs on toast at home.
Yep.
But when you make it for yourself, it doesn't feel the same as when somebody makes it for you. It could taste almost identical, but there's a different feeling about that when somebody's prepared something for you.
Yep.
Do you agree with that?
I guess it also depends on the, for me, it's more of nostalgic in terms of, let's say it was my grandmother or whoever preparing it for me. And these days when my dad do cook, it's him trying to teach me one of her recipes, right? And again, for me, it's, I agree with you on that point, because growing up, I've always seen my grandmother slaving herself in the kitchen just to cook for 20, 30 people. It wasn't easy back then, right? And I guess the word that I like to use is that she always likes to provide service, a hospital, right? And so because of that, I think that's me as a person today, that I actually enjoy watching people eat my food more than me eating my own food.
Yeah.
It's just some part of my DNA where I go, I'm happy. I'm happy when I see other people eat my food, or when I can serve other people, or when my food can, create a reaction, an emotion, or even a smile, and just go. And that's what, I guess, I don't know the term, but it fulfills me. It makes me satisfied, right? Yeah.
I think it's that experience. It's kind of crazy that we think about food being an experience nowadays, because obviously when times were tough, or times have been tough in history, people cared less about taste. They cared about sustenance and just having something to survive, right? But food has really become this really experiential thing now, and you think about when do you share, nice food with people? You usually share it with people that you love, friends and family, and it creates this almost it is an experience, right? And you're sharing this commonality with somebody, and that's why, we love the term breaking bread. You're bonding with somebody over food.
Yep.
Right? So to sort of talk about your, when you got sent to Australia, do you remember, was that your first time leaving Malaysia?
No. So I actually previously I had to come to Australia to do my IELTS and all that kind of stuff for a week, just to get all the paperwork sorted. Yep. So yeah, I did come to Sydney for maybe a week or 2 weeks to do all the paperwork for the school. But that was the first time I was away from family, right? And I was 16. My dad got us a 2-bedroom apartment in Hurstville, and they came, they helped us set up. They obviously bought the furnitures and showed us this is your school, this is how you walk to school, and yeah, they set us up. And after they left, after maybe a month or two, and then that was when boom, what is this? It's just my brother and I, completely out of place in a foreign country, homesick. I missed my girlfriend at the time, Sharon. It was, I guess, it was a dark place, right? For me, it was actually a dark place. And we're talking about almost 25, 23 years back. And, for me back then, I didn't know how to cook yet, all right? I was eating eggs in the microwave or instant noodles every day. So just a lot of all of that negativity that was going around. But then at the same time, holy shit, we're alone.
You can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want. Then we started, we wagged school, stayed at home to play, games and on the computer. And it was the first time where I actually tasted, what's the word? Independence. How you actually have to take care of yourself and to actually, do the right thing. And of course, for, I guess, at the start of the honeymoon period, I was skipping school and year 11, right, playing around, doing all the kind of things. And then, true enough, when year 12 came, it was HSC year and stuff like that. I was like, you know what, dude, it was, in a way, similar to when I was in Malaysia, where you go you gotta wake the fuck up. It's it's time to be an adult. It's time to, you know, get your life together, right? And so then, you know, then worked hard, got a result, went to uni. As time passed on, got used to the life in Australia, got used to living alone, got better at doing my own laundry.
This is little things you take for granted, right? Like,
Everything you take for granted, right? And then obviously got better and better at cooking. And I think that was one of the things that I enjoyed quite a bit the most, was to buy all these different ingredients and experiment at home. Like, even came to a point where we were eating so much instant noodles that I wanted to experiment with instant noodles. I'm like, how can I make this instant noodles taste better? All right, and we just play and we muck around. And yeah, back then there was so much cooking programs. Like after school, 3 p.m. it was always like Huey's Cooking Adventure. It was Ready Steady Cook. It was like from 3 to 5, just constant cooking, and I would just be watching, and then you know, one of the story which I wrote as well was that after an episode of Ready Steady Cook, the ingredient was fennel, and my brother and I just went, fennel? What is fennel? Like we haven't seen fennel in Malaysia in our lives. I was like, what is this? Like, all right, let's go tonight for our dinner. Let's just try fennel. We went to Coles, got the fennel, came back. What are we gonna do? Decided to like slice it up, did a stir fry with some garlic and soy sauce. Bloody hell, we ended up starving that whole night. We just chucked everything away, and it's like, oh. But those were the, I guess, parts of starting up here alone in Australia, to actually just like, you know, laying the foundations, I guess. Yeah.
Did your brother enjoy cooking?
He did back then. Yes, he did. We all took turns, and especially when Sharon came as well, then we all took turns. We all stayed sort of like in the same apartment, and would do. Someone would do lunch, someone would do dinner, and yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, what's your brother do now?
So my brother's back in Malaysia running my dad's business.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So what happened was, I was meant to. So after graduating, I was meant to go back to take over the family business. So over the years, my dad started with 4 employees, and over the years he built it up. He built it up to about, you know, almost 200 employees. So pretty decent size. And I was meant to go back to, I guess, take over and sit on the throne, right? And what happened was, after I graduated, I worked for the banks, and then they were still, you know, pushing and pressing me to go back to take over, and I just, you know, food has always been my passion. And so one day I just went, I'm going to quit the banks, I'm going to go to a cafe, learn how to make coffee, learn how to make bread. And then when I was 24, I saved up enough money to open a small cafe in Kogra. All right. And, but throughout all of that, before even all of that happened, as my dad was saying, come back, I was just pretty much saying, Dad, let me try this. Let me just try this one thing. Like, if I fail, if I screw up, I'll come back and run the business. But at least if I fail, or if I done it, then I can honestly go back with the right mind, saying that I've tried. And so I opened my first cafe when I was 24. And by 26, I had about 15 cafes, or 18 cafes all around Australia. Yeah. So that was when I actually go to my dad. Like, I was like, 25, 26. That was when I told my dad that I don't think
you're coming back.
I'm coming back to take over a business. I've got my own thing here right now, and I'm not coming back. So that broke his heart quite a bit. And you know, lucky for me, lucky for us, my brother could easily have had his life here as well, but my brother decided to make the decision to go back and, you know, help run the family business.
That's well, I guess, you know, it's nice of him, and then at the same time, it's also that would have helped your dad, you know, a lot. Yeah. Because I think, you know, for any parent, it's kind of like, you know, what do you do next, kind of a thing. Especially, you know, if you had hopes for one of your sons to take over your business, and then they're like, oh, I'm not going to do that.
Correct.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, but I think, you know, like he obviously understands, right?
I think it's a generation thing, right? And then you learn from it. So obviously for him, it took time for him to understand and get over it. Like, I had to grow a lot bigger as well. Like, you know, back then, even my mom and them, they would be like, look at my son, like this is Malaysia, right? Like all the aunties talking, right? Look at my son, you know, study double degree all the way until university, graduated. Look at him right now. He's making coffee and selling coffee like they weren't proud.
Yeah.
Right. After I did all the cafe things, I sold off to do Ho Jiak and I started my restaurant and all that kind of stuff. Oh, look at my son. You know, he graduated, double degree and everything. And what's he doing right now? He's just frying char kway teow. And in Malaysia, frying char kway teow
it's one, but you take it for granted, right? Like, because so in Malaysia especially, like there's a lot of hawker stores. You know, it's just basically a cart, like a food cart. You know, in Australia we have like food trucks, right? They get shipped from place to place. We're talking like literal carts that people will push by hand or they're attached to the back of a bicycle.
And they sell it on the street.
And they sell it on the street.
Yeah.
But
so,
go
sorry. So back to it. It's, I guess in a way you learn from experience that my dad built it up and always had the hopes of me taking over. I guess in a way he sent me here to study. He shaped me as a character, like a businessman. He would train me to drink alcohol at a young age, like stuff like that. Like he would be like, if you want to do business in Malaysia, you have to be able to hold your drink in, stuff like that. Like
how old are we talking?
All right. My granddad gave me my first beer when I was 4.
4?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, really young. So
did you hate the taste or did you actually enjoy it at 4?
I loved it.
You loved it?
Loved it.
It's funny actually because, you know, like nowadays we've got all the zero alcohol beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I have it, like I drink zero alcohol beer at home.
Yeah.
And whenever I open one, my kids are always like, Daddy, can I have some? I'm like, it's beer, you won't like it. And then it's like, give me a taste. And I gave them a sip and then like, oh, I like it. And I'm like, I don't know if they actually like it or they're just saying that so that they can get more. I don't know.
It's fizzy.
Yeah, it's fizzy.
Probably, yeah. So looking at my dad,
Wow.
Looking at my dad, and he shaped me and trained me up, and he had really high hopes of me taking over. And so I guess for me again, like tying back to as generation go, like different family, different generations. So for me then, as I'm building this, what I have right now here in Australia, I then do not try to shape one of my kids to take over. I do not have my hopes up that hopefully one day one of them will take over. And so then I can plan and organize, like either having an exit strategy or running it till I die or something like that. But at least I don't have that expectation and I won't be disappointed. You know what I mean? And it's more of like, so that you guys can go and do whatever you love and, you know, spread your wings and fly. Right? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, with that being said, like, I don't want to say like my dad didn't do that. My dad has always been spread your wings and fly to me. So, yeah.
Was there any initial, like, because before you went to university, right, and you were thinking, I'm going to cook and learn how to do this sort of stuff, like, was there any sort of, like, especially Asian parents, right, they're usually like, do something safe.
Yep.
Go become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or an accountant. Like, they're the safe professions that most Asian parents sort of push their kids into. So, yeah, is that the reason why you went to uni, or was there...
Yeah, so same thing. I was like enjoying life, right? So let's go back a little bit. 16, year 17, year 11, 18, year 12 HSC, legal age to buy alcohol. And when I was year 12, threw a lot of parties. Realized that I didn't have enough money. Even when I first came 16, 17, I was doing a garbage disposal. Like, so this is what my dad, being a very practical man, he gave us $150 a week, and I just go. After a while, realized that, you know, after paying off some food and this and that, it's like, Dad, that's not enough money. And then my dad just goes to me, if you don't have enough money, you do what other people do, get a job. So I got a job. So I started working at a very young age. And then when I was 18, the more I hit 18, got my RSA, started doing bartending, worked at the liquor land in Hurstville, in the Westville. Yep. And when I was 19, and towards the end of 18, or like turning 19, before I was meant to go to uni, they offered me the assistant manager position at Liquorland, and I looked at the pay, and at that time I was like, "Holy shit, that's a lot of money!" Right? Assistant manager at 19, like, oh, I'm gonna I have a career here. Like me being me, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go climb up the ranks at Cold Group and stuff like that. And at the same time, I wanted to study culinary because I really enjoyed cooking back then. Asian parents being Asian parents, go get a proper degree. And my HSC results wasn't bad. Like, I could get a proper degree. Go be a lawyer, go be a this, go be a that. And usually, like, okay, let me correct, not Asian parents, mom, right? Dad actually stopped me. He actually said, don't take up the assistant manager because you only have 4 more years to go in uni. And after these 4 years, you're going to have to work for the rest of your life. That's what he said to me. And I didn't understand it back then, but I listened to him. And I didn't take up the assistant manager, and I just stayed on as a casual and like doing bartending or that kind of things. Now, same thing. Want to go to culinary school. And like most Asian parents, they would say, go get a proper degree. My dad actually looked to me and actually said, go to university. Doesn't matter what you want to study, but you have to go to university because it's going to be the most fun time of your life. You're going to make the friends that you make there are probably going to be friends for life, and it's going to be the most amazing time of your life. And true enough, that 4 years at UTS, the friends that I made, they all became like my best man at my wedding. We're still friends right now till today. We started the cafe business together, and you know, I did a lot of stuff during uni, like representing Malaysian students and all that kind of things, like the Malaysian Students Association. Yeah, the association. Like literally went from like that position to that. I even went all the way up to nationals level. I was the chairperson for the whole of Australia, and I mean, like, it's not a brag, but it's more so of like what we could have done, what we could have achieved, like the amount of funds we raised, the games and like the sport event and all that kind of stuff that we did. It actually really, I guess, shaped not the right word, but like trained me to handle and manage larger projects. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is no business or IT degree or whatsoever will teach you that. Your lecturer is not going to teach you that.
Yeah.
But it's the shit that you do in uni that teaches you that and allows you to grow as a person. Yeah. And so again, because of my dad.
Out of curiosity, then, when you talk about like the Malaysian society and things like that, like what did you do differently? Like, what was it certain initiatives? Was it the way that you structured things? Like, what do you think? What do you attribute to why you felt like the society found so much more success when you were involved with it?
Yeah, so I think the first thing was pride, right? Like pride, like really wanted to be proud to be like a Malaysian or a Malaysian student, and obviously a lot of them coming in, I realized I've already been through that whole homesickness, and I call this place home right now. So I wanted to provide a space where if you are homesick, come together. Like that was the main message, come together. And so the events that we had, like we had makan, like where I would literally cook 100 kilos of curry and this and that. And back then I started cooking as well. And then we just started cooking. And then, back then I think we charged like $7 per person, like not to make money, not for profit, just come, eat, hang out. And, soon enough, our makan or whatsoever it's called, like started going to, hundreds of people. Like the event started getting bigger. And then after that, there was Malaysian Festival at Tumbalong Park and stuff like that. So we started growing and started making it bigger. I think, again, to answer your question, I think just to have, I guess, family, right? Family, friends, and, letting people know that we're Malaysians, we're together, and we like, you don't have to feel alone. You don't have to feel homesick, if anything. And I guess then after that, for all of them, taking pride in what we do, in the sense that, like, as the events and the stuff got bigger and at larger scale, a lot of them started putting more and more time and effort into it. And it was just pretty much like running an organization. And to do that at such a young age, I think it was, it was eye-opening. Yeah,
definitely. So, okay, so when you finished uni, you went to work in a bank, right?
Yep.
What was that experience like? And I guess what are some of the learnings that you got from entering the corporate world?
So I graduated in 2008 from a finance degree. 2008 was GFC, Global Financial Crisis. Yeah. So I before I graduated, I got like an offer from Macquarie Bank graduate program, and that before I even finished my degree, they had to cancel it because
money.
We can't afford. Then the first job that I actually got was actually at Comsac, and even then they couldn't offer me a position. It was a 3-month to 3-month contract, just doing trading, and I finally ended up in ING for a couple of months, maybe a year and a bit, doing mortgages and stuff like that. And what was it like? It was absolutely everything that I dreamed of or I thought of. Like, as of course, with time changed. Before that, I wanted to cook and all that kind of stuff. But then obviously, like the person that I am, I started doing finance and all that kind of things. I started going, all right, good. I want to climb up the top. I want to climb up the ranks of this bank, of that bank, of the bank. So when I went in, it was exactly like that. Putting on a suit, going to work, doing, your team talks, your politics, Friday nights, drinks with the bosses and the managers and all that kind of stuff. Playing the game, right? Playing the game. And I mean, I did like it. I did enjoy it, but it was a tough time. It was a financial crisis. It was a tough time. And after getting all the experience again, a bit of both, a bit of a crossroad as well, where Dad was like, come back, and I had to go, I want to try something as well. And, so then I decided to turn my passion into a career, just like a leap of faith, just like jump. I go, if I fail in the hospital industry, I can always come back to work for the bank. So one day I just went, yep, I'm out. Yeah, learn how to make coffee, and then after that, started my own cafe.
So, where was the cafe that you learned how to make coffee?
It was
Australia,
no, it was here in on George Street. A couple of those down from back then the old Comsec building. Can't remember what it's called. It's no longer there. And after that, I went to Haymarket. The one, it's also gone already. Can't exactly remember, but it was just a couple of free shifts. Like I just went in, teach me how to make coffee. Didn't get paid. Just show me the basics.
Yeah.
And then after that, started going to different coffee roasters because I had to find coffee beans for the cafe that I want to start up. And then that was where most of the time I started really learning a lot more and like getting better at making coffee as well.
Yeah. So why did you start with coffee? Like out of all the things,
so
if you enjoy cooking and things like that, why start with coffee?
Yeah. So back then, the cafe industry was really, really booming. And it was a very, very low, entry cost to actually open a cafe. And again, that's all the money I saved up. I didn't have enough money to, open a restaurant or apply for a franchise and stuff like that. And I wanted to open a cafe. And then, so the funny part is, then I talked to my dad, and my dad actually goes, hey, you know what? Remember your neighbor, like the neighbor that you lived in PJ? I goes, yeah, I remember him. He goes like, he's just starting this thing right now. It's called Papparoti. Apparently it's pretty big. So it was like this, like Roti Boy, the coffee bun.
Coffee bun.
It's like, maybe you can incorporate that into the cafe that you open. I'm like, okay, let's tee it up. So I flew back to Malaysia to meet up with them and talk. And then it goes like, of course, they watched me grow up. And they go like, okay, sure, why don't we try it and let you be the master licenser for Australia? And so that's why after I did all the paperwork, and then I brought the Papparoti to Australia.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, wow. Okay. Because so were they? So they were the ones that started Papparoti in Malaysia.
Yeah.
They started it.
Yeah, my name is.
Wow.
Yeah.
And okay, wow. And then so then they like it's a big call for them to just go and say, okay, we'll let you be the master franchisee.
I
right?
of course, but I made them a lot of money, right?
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
It works both ways, right? So I mean, for them, they were starting up. They at that time, I think they only had their product in a couple of countries, and they didn't know how it would go in Australia. Because as a parent company, you obviously want to try to get as many people taking your franchise or your license as is. And so here I come, and of course, I had to pay whatever they charge, like whatever the cost, whatever everything I had to pay as well. There wasn't really much favor, but I just went, okay, I'll try it. And
no trepidation on your part, no nervousness around, I'm going to put all my money into this and see where it goes? Like, did you have any of those oh shit moments, I guess?
No, so setting it up, not so much. Building it up and everything, again, not so much. Getting the paperwork was all tedious. The oh shit moment came the night before we opened. So we set everything up. We constructed the cafe. We brought all the buns in from Malaysia. Did all the training. It was me and Roden. This guy, he's from Sydney Tech and uni friend as well. It was meant to be me and him. It was always going to be one guy on the coffee machine, one guy on the buns, or we rotate, right? And so we set everything up. We were tired. Tomorrow's opening day, and we were so tired from the last few weeks of setting up, and I just go, all right, let's call it early. Let's get out here by 8 o'clock. Have a good sleep. I'll meet you back here at 4 a.m. because we were about to open the cafe at 6 a.m. I said, all right, sounds like a plan. We all left our own ways at 8 p.m. I think at about 10:30 or 11, got a call from the hospital. Are you Junda? I'm like, yeah. It's like, do you know of a rodent lamb? I'm like, yeah, why, what's happening? We're from the hospital. He just had a bike accident. He's in the emergency ward right now, blah, blah, blah. Come have a look. So
Shit.
called my other buddies. We all went straight to the hospital at 11:30. And then that's when we found out that he was so tired. On the way home, he fell asleep on his bike, hit a curb, flung himself out, landed on his back. And that was when I found out that he was going to be out for at least 8 months to a year.
Wow.
And here I have opening day in a couple hours. Like, we were there until like maybe 2 to 3 in the morning, just going, oh shit.
Yeah.
That was my oh shit moment. Oh shit. And so luckily I called a couple of our group of friends, like the buddies over there as well. And I said, guys, can you do me a big solid favor? It's opening day tomorrow. Sorry, it's opening day in 2 to 3 hours. Like, we were still in hospital. Do you mind calling in sick? And so, yeah, they called in sick. They came. They helped with they ended up calling in sick for the whole week. help with the opening of the cafe, and yeah, I mean, that's when I started, like, in the industry.
When what was opening day like for Papparoti for you? Was it busy?
Yeah, busy.
And I guess what was it initiatives that you did in the lead up to that helped to build a bit of hype, or what was it that sort of do you attribute to that success of like the opening day?
Yeah. So back then, in terms of social media wise, there was only Facebook, right? So we did quite a bit of posting and everything on Facebook. But back then, one of the things that was very strong was actually what do you call it? Junk mail.
Junk mail.
You remember
Yeah,
when
like
people would be walking around and dropping leaflets into the mailbox, right? Yeah. So we paid a couple of guys, like a company, to actually drop leaflets like in a 3 kilometer radius. And opening special was buy one free one.
Yep.
And so the moment at 6 o'clock,
Boom.
when I opened, boom, queues from all the doctors and nurses from the hospitals nearby. And this was in Kogra, like on Railway Parade, and I was just like queue all the way. And we barely had enough sleep. We barely slept. I don't even think I slept. And we were so tired, we just pushed through. Like, we just powered on all the way. Yeah.
Wow. So then, how do you then go from the one shop and then scaling to getting to that point of, having 15 or 18 Papparotis Australia wide?
Yeah. So seeing the success of the first shop, then we started getting a lot of inquiries. Like, where can we buy this bun? Like, can we open our own cafe or that kind of thing? So then that's when I as the master licensor, am allowed to sell them the license as well. But the first few ones, I had to be pretty strict because I was new to the whole, I guess, franchising and licensing thing. And one of the advice my dad gave me was like, you don't just simply sell out. Like, it's quick money right now, but if they don't run it well, you're going to destroy the brand, you're going to destroy the reputation. So I kept my cards pretty tight. I went, no, until the second shop was actually opened in Cabramatta. So they were friends, like they were boys from Sydney Tech as well, a couple of years my seniors. Maybe you know them. Gavin So and, oh no, wait, you didn't go to Sydney Tech, my bad. Gavin and Joshua, like they were from Sydney Tech as well. They opened the one in Cabramatta, and that took off like, man, John Street.
Great area for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right demographic, huge Asian population.
Boom.
Yep.
The volume of the buns and coffee that they were pumping out was easily 5 times what we could do in Kogra. Like, it was crazy, right? And so as that then branched out, came the third one, and then this guy came to me in the name of William, right? He goes, so I currently run the Easy Way in Central Station. I run this here and that, and then like I would like to get a Papparoti license from you and open it in Kingsford. And I thought, oh, number one, Kingsford's a good place, good location. And I really liked him. I really liked the impression that he had on me, all right? And so I said, all right, let's do business. He then opened up the Papparoti in Kingsford, and that then did better than Cabramatta because he had the whole idea of the whole concept of like, let's not just sell buns and coffee. Let's put in a gelato machine here, 20 flavors. Let's do pancakes, waffles, and all kind of things. And so he took the business to a whole new level. And of course, throughout all of that, we were working together very closely. And that's when I realized, we work really, really well together. And so till today, William's my business partner in all of the Ho Jiak, or everything that we do right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just to sort of go back to that initial conversation with William, like, I know, like sometimes it's just like you just click with certain people, right? But when you say like, you know, you got a really good impression of this guy, what if you could try and like distill down what the attribute was? Was it that he would seem genuine? Was it like, I don't know, what was it about him that you sort of felt like, oh, there's something about this guy?
Genuine, but more so business-minded and what's the word? Realistic, right? Realistic. Because prior to him, I've met a lot of other people as well. Oh, I'm going to put in this kind of money. Oh, I'm going to put this. I'm going to build a Papparoti here. I'm going to sell this. I'm going to sell a lot of big talk.
Yeah, full of shit.
Yeah. Nice. Full of shit. I love it. A lot of full of shit. They're all full of shit, right? Plenty. And William just being William, just go like, I don't need, like, instead of going like, oh, we're going to do this, it's more of like, why do we have to do that? Like, that's just not necessary. Why don't we do this? Why don't I? And he changed, like, he started then putting things in place where I go, yeah, that actually makes sense. Why didn't I think of that? So then William became my second cornerstone, was it?
Yeah, cornerstone.
My second cornerstone relationship.
Yeah.
And him and I have been together ever since then.
Yeah. It's that ability to bounce the ideas back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, partnerships in business is always a very interesting one, because a lot of the times people might get into business with friends and it ends badly. And part of the reason why it ends badly is because you run on this assumption that, oh, they're my friend, you know, this will be okay, that will be okay, but hang on a second, have you really talked about it? Because if you've really talked about it, then there are certain things that, yeah, are not going to be okay, right? But there are some relationships where it's like you guys can just click, and it's like, you know, if you always, you know, say what you mean and do what you say, like they're probably the two key things to sort of building trust in a relationship. And then the next part is like, yeah, like you have to be committed in terms of like, you know, what is the vision, what is the goal, right? And then also, yeah, as you said, being realistic, right? Like I think that's always a really interesting one, because especially when you're young, you don't know any better, right? But at the same time, I feel like some of that that sort of curiosity or that sort of vision that you have when you're young, you don't want to get too jaded as you get older to not then execute on those big ideas. Like I still think, you know, there's a certain, you know, when you have this vision about how you want things to be, a lot of the times everybody's going to tell you no, right? Everyone, you probably heard no a million times, right? Yep. And they're always going to say, oh, no, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And then they're giving you all the reasons why not to do things. And then, you know, the reality is like, well, if you do nothing, you do nothing. No one's ever going to know anyway. But if you just keep executing and then you just take those little pivots every single time, you know, like the gelato machine, such a small thing, right? Well, 20 of them is probably not small, like 20 flavors is probably not small, but like, you know, having an idea like that to sort of branch out the product offering. Yep. You know, they're all little things. Like I think, you know, when we think about, even like in Malaysia, right? Like when we think about hawker centers and hawker stores, they usually just good at like
one thing. Yeah.
But then it's the collaborative in the sense that when you go there, there's 20 of them there.
Right. And
you go to the specialist for each dish. They're hardly ever competing with each other over the same food. It's always slightly different.
Yep.
Right? So then with William, like, how fast in terms of a timeline did you guys grow? So it was obviously Cogra first, Cabramatta, with the other guys, then William came on board with Kingsford. Yep. So then that was already 3. And then how fast did the rest of it sort of?
So it was pretty fast. In 2 years, I think, I can't really remember, like between 18 to 24. So what happened was, as we were building and we were actually starting to make money, then we started taking on projects. So like the shops in, say, Burwood, the flagship store in the city on George Street, the one in Strathfield, the one in, I can't remember where, we actually opened it all ourselves. Like, we opened it. And then I licensed it out to Victoria, to Queensland, and they had like a couple of over there as well. We even had one all the way in Cairns. And so in that 2 years, it was a lot of, for me then, I started to not be in the cafe anymore. And then my main job was just to fly to all the different shops to test the coffee and test the bun. And like, it was, more of a, quality control, admin kind of job.
So, I just picked up on something there when you talk about the coffee, right? Because you mentioned that you started going around to visit all the coffee roasters to source the beans. So were all the Papparotis using the same bean mix that you had sourced?
Yeah. And so I had to find, for me, it was more of like the buns were pretty hard because we couldn't sell it that much. Let's say we sold it for $2. I think we started at $1.80 per bun, but it was already costing us like $1.10.
Wow.
To just even bring it in. Then you plus label what I like. But I knew that was the pool for people to come.
Yep.
Where we were going to make our money from.
Upsell.
Yeah, upsell was actually from the coffee. And so we actually went then to roast our own coffee blend. And, with at the peak of it, we were going through about 700, 800 kilos of coffee a week.
So then you would have had to have your own distribution?
Yeah. So it was actually, we got a spot in, what's the place called already? Sydenham. Sydenham, yeah. There was a warehouse there. It was roasting the coffee just specifically for Papparoti, and then whenever they put in an order, they would just distribute out to every shop. Yeah.
So I think, people often take for granted all of the moving pieces, right? But I guess, in that sense, it wasn't like you started from day one with all of these all of these opportunities, I should say. But, you slowly progressively build, right? So you start with the one store, then it's two, then it's three, and then as you start to grow and grow, then it's like, okay, we need to solve this problem now.
Yep.
Did you struggle to find, a supplier who could meet the demand that you needed, or?
No, I mean, even then, if you really think about it, we were relatively small scale, right? Compared to Toby's estate and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think the problem that I struggled with back then was actually, again, like I said, I think I grew too quickly and I opened too many, in the sense that then the market got saturated pretty quickly, especially with shops that couldn't do it properly or right. And then that sort of like tarnishes the brand name.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the most important lessons that I learned, was how important branding actually was.
Yeah.
I was so focused in operation.
Yeah.
I was so focused in, we gotta make the best coffee. Like we have to make like you have to make sure the coffee's good. Like you have to cook the bun or roast it, like bake the bun until it's like this. It has to be 5 cm. It can't be bigger. It can't be smaller. Otherwise, I was so focused in
QC.
operation, QC and all that kind of stuff. When then obviously the shops that couldn't do it well, or there were too many and the market saturated, the brand name, I guess, in a way, took a hit. And that's what I actually learned. Like branding is so important. And again, so tying that story or that lesson that I learned to Ho Jiak now, after the first one, after the second one, everybody wants to open Ho Jiak, right? It's the same thing. Just sell us the recipe, sell us the franchise, turn it into a franchise. We can open it, we can put it everywhere. You can have 30, 20 Ho Jiaks in Australia. But because of that lesson, I actually go, nah, I'm actually going to handle and run all of the Ho Jiaks myself. And I'm not going to sell it out and saturate the market and all that kind of stuff again.
Well, it's part of that, what goes into a brand is that exclusivity factor, right? I guess, so I have my background's car industry, right? So when you think about car brands, like there's a certain expectation that you have when you walk into a Mercedes-Benz dealership. Might have changed over the years, but like, for especially even for our parents, like the Mercedes was the aspirational car, right? And the BMW was always like, it's the young businessman style of car. Like we had this belief, especially in Asian culture overseas, that this is how we view the brands, right?
Yeah.
And like there's a certain factor that goes into this brand appeal, and it's quite funny because like nowadays, like products get quite competitive in the sense of whether it's like even like these newer cars, these battery electric vehicles, like a BYD, Chinese made car, pretty good. Like if you were just sort of looking at it on the technology and all those sorts of aspects, like they're actually quite good for the price tag, which then puts more pressure on a brand like Mercedes. Like, what are you actually delivering now? Because I think this is part of the reason why there's been a bit of a slowdown in terms of manufacturers moving purely to electric vehicles, because you sort of realize that, okay, if all the car now becomes is an electric skateboard,
Yep.
and it's the tech inside, like whether it's, Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, like that's more important to people. How do you now differentiate your product? But it was different when, you're buying a Mercedes because you want the AMG with the V8 bi-turbo, and you can't get that with, the two turbos at the top of the engine. Like, that doesn't exist in another brand, right? So when it comes to branding, I guess, what are the, and that was a great lesson that you shared there, but I guess, what do you sort of, when you think about the brand, like Ho Jiak as a brand, right? What are the things that are important to you? Like, what sort of is the brand statement or the mission statement of the brand?
So it changes as we grow, right?
Yeah.
When we first started out, it was more of like wanting to share, like the reason why I started Ho Jiak was to want to share Malaysian food with the people of Sydney. So all of these all come back from all the memories back then when I was 15, 16, 17, 18, homesick, went to Hurstville. There was a Malaysian restaurant there. They were selling pho and they were selling...
Was that Kampong Village? Is that the one? On Forest Road, right?
Oh no, the Kampong Village came like right after that.
Really?
Kampong was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. But I'm talking about like long time ago. Selling like Mongolian lamb and all kind of stuff. And yeah, so even when I started out Ho Jiak, Sydney only had, I think, Mamak. There was Alice Kitchen. There was obviously Malay Chinese already. There was only a fair few, and so that was the branding or the mission objective then, to share our food. And of course, as we grew bigger and bigger, then it was more of like, I guess, sharing our food with the produce that we get here, helping Australian farmers, helping Australian, livestock and all that kind of stuff, the cows and all that kind of thing. So then it came to a point where we had to be like that progressive one, where we don't just use imported frozen stuff because it's cheap and then sell it out. It was more of like we're using fresh local produce, lobsters, prawns and all kind of things. And so that's why it reflects on the price. And of course then we get a lot of backlash, right? Malaysian food isn't supposed to be so expensive. Malaysian food is supposed to be cheap and blah, 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 blah. And so then leads to, I guess, in a way, where we are right now, where the branding is or the mission objective is. We're redefining traditions. And, yes, if you don't think our food is authentic, it's not. Because it could be authentic to you, it could be authentic to me. There's no right way. If you think our food is not traditional, that's okay. But I've been around here for 10 years. In another 10 years' time, if your kid's been eating my food for 20 years, my food's going to be traditional to your kids. So a lot of things where time will, play out. And I guess for us right now, it's more of like being that progressive Asian restaurant where we don't, I guess, run things the way the old school run it. And also we have a voice and I have a point of view, because like the whole argument of like why char kway teow, why a ravioli can be $30 to $40, but when we go to Yam Cha we pay $5 for a dumpling like hakao or whatever, and that's expensive. There's so much more work going into dim sum, right? Or why people don't want to pay more than $10 for a banh mi, but will happily go get coffee and a sandwich for like, $15, $16.
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess, and yeah, again, char kway teow and pasta, stuff like that.
It's a really interesting stereotype, right? Because you think about especially when, like to me, when I think of like good Italian food, it's not necessarily complex. Like when I say not necessarily complex, I mean it's about the ingredients, right? Like it's about the texture of the pasta. It's about, the quality of like the olive oil. Maybe it's the chili. Maybe it's little things like that. But then when you think about the complexity of like how many ingredients go into your char kway teow, like it's probably like 20 ingredients.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I think the stereotype happens also because like if we all went to Italy and we paid for a plate of pasta, like the euro's so strong, that's the price over there anyway. We come back, it's like, all right, the price is decent.
Yeah.
If we go to Malaysia and we have a plate of char kway teow, and it's like what, maybe 8 or 9 ringgit these days, so it's still $3. And
Yeah.
you come back here like, what? It's $20? Like, you know.
Yeah.
So that's part one of the stereotype. But of course, then for me, part two is more of like the education. Like, you know, this is not Malaysia. Like, we don't pay the rent that we pay in Malaysia. The cost of good is obviously a lot more expensive here. And the most important thing, look at our labor, look at our chefs and everything. Like, we're not running a stall where the person that cooks it does the washing, does the collection of the money, and like it's a whole different ballgame. So it's more of like education of that. And I think to change the stereotype of like, I'm not saying that Italian food is bad. I'm not saying that Italian food is expensive. I'm just saying that our food, in terms of Asian, like Asian food wise, I just want people to actually look at it at a different view. Look at it in my point of view, where, you know what, it shouldn't be cheap because we're actually in Australia. All of this costs equally the same as Western food, right? Yeah. The prawns that you use for your pasta cost the same as the prawns that I use for my char kway teow. The chef that you use costs the same as the chef that I use to cook. So everything is actually the same. Then why then does one dish gets perceived that it should be cheap? Again, it all comes back because you can get it cheaper in
overseas.
Asia.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. You know, I always use the line of thinking, like, you know, it's like even when we think about like Vietnamese pho, beef noodle soup, right? When I went to Vietnam with my wife on a holiday kind of a thing, and you eat like the pho over there, and it's like, I actually prefer the pho here.
Yeah,
right.
Same.
And it comes down to, it's not necessarily like you can say, oh, maybe the one in Vietnam is meant to be more authentic or original, but perhaps it's just the ingredients. I just prefer the Australian ingredients better, and
Correct.
it tastes better as a result, or has a different appeal to me that I enjoy that I didn't enjoy as much. Whether maybe I'm not eating beef, I'm eating like, water buffalo, as opposed to eating like beef, right? Yeah. So it's those little things. But I think we skipped over some. I want to go back to this because it'll sort of lead into the cooking journey for you, right? Ho Jiak wasn't the first Malaysian style restaurant that you got involved with, right? It was Petaling Street, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So how did that happen? Like, what was the sort of genesis of that? Like that happened obviously after Papparoti, right?
Yeah. So what happened was the guys who opened the Papparoti in Melbourne were like Vietnamese, and they were big business people. So they had Bread Top. They have a lot of other businesses in Glen Waverley and stuff like that too.
Yep.
So one of those days when I actually did go there and to just check on the shop, they were like, "Oh, come, try. Why don't you come and try this?" So I walked into the Petaling Street in Glen Waverley, and the moment I ate the food, I was like, "Oh my god, it's good. This is what Sydney is actually missing," right? Because you got Mamak who does the roti, you got Malay Chinese who does the laksa and the hami, and then you've got Alice who does similar thing. You don't actually have like a Malaysian restaurant in Sydney, and I was like, this is what we need, right? Come to Sydney. We'll go 50-50. We'll be partners. We'll run the show, William and I. You can just stay Sydney and Melbourne, and you can just collect the profits that we make. So that's how Petaling Street came about. Yeah. And when we opened Petaling Street on George Street, we obviously did pretty well. We went from George Street to Kingsford to Bonnyrigg, and then I can't remember one more place. So we opened quite a few branches, and it was all doing well, right? Doing well. But came to a point where I got pretty fed up because me being me, I've always wanted to improve. Like, how do we increase the sales? How do we make the food better and all that kind of stuff? And the problem with the business back then was they were relying heavily on the chefs, where the chefs could do whatever they want, cook whatever they want, and that was it. And so I was just running let's say the front of house or the operation side, but I didn't really have much say. Every time I go in, I go like, your chicken's overcooked today, and then, or your soy sauce too salty, whatever. They would then contact the business owner in Melbourne, and then she'll call me and she'll start scolding me as like, just don't touch it. Just leave it. You have no experience. Like, you have no experience. You're not a chef, blah, blah, just leave it. I say, I may not be a chef, but I have taste buds and I know what I want. As a business owner, like, I should have my say too. And it's like, no, just leave it alone. No. And that went on for, a couple of months or weeks. And came to a point where I got so fed up that, like, I just wasn't happy going to work. I just wasn't happy running a business, like my own business, right? And I just went, you know what? we've helped you set up, William and I, we've helped you set up all of this already. You've seen how much money it's making. Buy us out. We want out. Right? Just buy us out. We want out. And of course, her being her in the style of the business person that she is, she goes, ooh, now that the buyout price should be very, very high because at least 4 times of what we bought in because like it's making
more money.
And there's many locations. And she just went, ooh, but how much you want? And I said, look, I'm really, really fed up. Just buy me out at my buy-in price. So at that time, it was $500,000. So buy me out at my buy-in price. I don't care whatever I've done for you. You can keep it all. Just give me back the money that I invested in the first place. And then she just started going, ooh, only $500,000. Ooh, that's like 4 Petaling Street right now. They're all making this kind of money. Like, I'll be stupid to not buy you out.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be stupid to not buy you out. And she was greedy. Greed got her. So she goes, okay, sure. So William and I, we took our $500,000, went to Strathfield, opened our first Ho Jiak. 2 years later, opened the one in Haymarket. And I think within 3 years of opening Ho Jiak, all of the Petaling Street all closed down, all shut. Yeah. But that, I don't say that with a vengeance. I say that more of sort of like, that's how important the people running it is.
Yeah.
Right? It's you can't just rely or like listen to whatever other people, say and do. And again, it comes back down to the point that you need to have consistency. So that's the one thing that I learned with Petaling Street, or from Petaling Street. To be a successful restaurant, your food doesn't have to be the best. It doesn't have to be the most delicious. To be a successful restaurant, you just have to be consistent. If you're consistently good, you will get good sales. If you're consistently shit, you will still get sales, because food is subjective, it's perspective, right? And if to other people they think that you're consistently shit, guess what? You are still better than an inconsistent restaurant.
Yeah.
Where you come in one day, oh my God, it's amazing. You come in the next time, oh, it's different. You come in the next day, oh, it's good again. They won't come back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people ask me this, in your opinion, like in my opinion, what is the most successful restaurant? Like what is, to me, McDonald's. Look at how many McDonald's there are. Same items, same everything. And to me, that's, in my eyes, as a restaurateur, it's the most successful restaurant. And a lot of them go, oh, come on, you're a chef, you're this, you're that. Like, no way McDonald's is going to be better than, like, your restaurant. I say, sure. Have you been to my restaurant? Like, and they'll be like, yeah. I say, how many times have you come to my restaurant in the last year? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, we went there once or twice. I say, okay. How much you spend? Oh, maybe about 200, 300. I say, okay. Think about this real hard right now. How much did you and your family spend at McDonald's in the last year?
Facts, right?
Yeah. And I just go,
Yeah.
You're right.
But that just, like exactly what you're saying. It's consistency, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting in that sense, because McDonald's is so, not to say prescriptive, but they have their standard operating procedures down to a T.
Yep.
Right? Everything is timed. It's sort of, and we've seen this happen in coffee, right? Because in the past, people would go to a particular coffee shop because they like the way the barista makes the coffee. Nowadays, everything's weighted. The scales will tell you exactly how many grams. You have automatic tamping machines which go and set the pressure. You go and put it in the machine, you push a button, and then that's going to get the draw done for you. Like that, and then the only real thing that you could fuck up, sorry language, is the milk, right? But then now there's thermometers.
Milk machine, yep.
Right? There's milk machines. There's all this sort of stuff that's taken it away from, and it's kind of funny that, we use the word art for it, right? We call cooking an art, right? But then as we start to get more prescriptive about it, it becomes a science, right? And I feel like, coffee's definitely become more like a science nowadays. It's like about, there's no point having something that tastes the best if you can't replicate it, right? Because how are you going to share that with everybody else? And one of my friends, Sam, he runs Gabriel Coffees, and like whenever I go visit him at his little warehouse showroom coffee roastery place, like everything's like so scientific nowadays, right? When it comes to the food preparation in your restaurants, like how much of that now is like, I guess you sort of delineate the art and the science part, right? The science part is what you're serving to the people, and the artistry part is probably what you're experimenting with and playing with, right?
Yep. Yes. So the science part is definitely the system, like you said, the McDonald's system, where everything has to be weighed and all that kind of stuff. The art part is, again, when it comes to our cooking, it's the wok. Unfortunately, there is no science, there's no system for that. That really depends on the skill of the chef. And again, comes to like, it comes down to, sorry, that doesn't come down, it comes to another point that I've been trying to make, or branding, or like MO, that why should our food, like, you know, be cheap again when you go to culinary school, they're not going to go like on the first day, come, let me teach you how to use a wok. You can probably go through 3-4 years of culinary school, you've graduated, you still don't know how to use a wok. And then when you come here and you apply for a job, do you know how to use a wok? No. And then I, as a business owner, have to spend more time and money to teach and train, right? And again, these kind of things will, in a way, take time for, I guess, experience and skills for you to be able to, you know, be a good artist on the wok, right? And so that's the art part of the restaurant right now.
What do you think of when you see like those robotic machines where they dump the food in and it's in a drum spinning with the fire underneath? Like I guess that's a robotic form of trying to, you know, recreate, you know, the wok artistry.
Yeah, correct. So again, I've seen a lot of that. I've even wanted to try. Again, with that is you're trying to create like a restaurant that's like McDonald's, where it's the same. You only have the same few items, and so then it loses its art, because art is about creating, right? And for me, at my restaurant, I change my menu like 2 times a year because I like to create. That's the art part. I create, and then we go. But then if you have something like that machine, it will just constantly do the same thing to the program that it's set to, right? So again, don't get me wrong. There are restaurants which I respect, like McDonald's, who does that, who makes money. Or then you can also come to a restaurant like mine at Ho Jiak. Like, again, we have all the different ones where we try to create and we try to educate and we try to do different things. So, you know, there's no, I guess, right or wrong. There's no argument that we're trying to make here. But for me, again, it's always been like so that people can actually just see it differently, more broadly, right? Like how, like, you know, how it is. You know, don't say that, you know, McDonald's is shit or bad, right? It's at the point that I just made.
Yeah. It always depends on what you're scoring it against, right? When it comes to the cooking side of things, so you know, you're a bit of an enigma in the sense that you're not like a classically trained chef, so to speak, right? And I'm sort of curious about the story behind this, because obviously with Petaling Street, you didn't really get to do any of the cooking, right? You were just managing front of house. You got very disheartened by the whole sort of experience, so to speak. You know, when it came to then, you know, you trying to find that confidence and belief in your own cooking, where did that come from?
So I think that one strong. I've always said this again all the time, that I always trust my taste buds first, right? So I've always trusted my taste buds first. That's actually the strongest part of me, I guess, as a chef or as a human being, that I could taste quite refined or detailed stuff, and from then on, I can build in the sense that like how I want something to taste. But from the moment that we opened our first Ho Jiak, the main goal was actually to be consistent. And so from like looking at the old school chef or the classics where they go like salt, sugar, MSG, sauce, like with everything all no measurement, the first thing that we had to do was to actually fix all of that, to actually come up with a system and with timers and everything. Like if you're gonna cook my sambal, you need this, and at this kind of time, and at what kind of heat and all kind of things. So we had to fix the consistency part first. Part of that as well then led to the second part, where a lot of chefs that came, they didn't really want to follow because they're experienced and hotshot, and again, they'll look at me and they'll be like, you're only 20, I can't remember what it was. You're only like 28, you don't know how to even use a wok, why should I listen to you, blah, blah. So the second part was more of like then hiring people that would actually follow the system, right? And then when all of that was done and sorted out, because obviously when we first opened Ho Jiak, it was fairly quiet. It didn't take us till about 9 months before we actually started building a queue and people started knowing about us and all that kind of stuff. That's when then the confidence part came, where again, confidence for me is like, it's always chicken and eggs, right? That's where I actually come and go like, you know what? Maybe we're actually doing something right here. Maybe, we were right all along, like production and all kind of things. Because throughout that, through the 9 months, you'd be like, oh no, what's happening? Oh no, we just put everything in, like, are we doing right? So then the confidence came. And we started doing the street food of Malaysia, which was fairly simple. It was what every other Malaysian restaurant was also doing back then. And then confidence came when people had to wait an hour and a half for our food. And then they were like saying, go to the city, open your second restaurant. And confidence, we were confident enough, opened Haymarket. It was a $2 million project. It was a 120-seat restaurant. And the idea for the whole of Haymarket Place was to cook and to share grandma's cooking, right? Again, what confidence came from my business partner, William, who goes, if it's good, people will pay for it. A lot of other people would just be like, back at that time, you're crazy. Who's going to want to pay for, your grandma's cooking when they can just cook it at home, right? Why would people come to a restaurant to pay money for that? Like, especially in terms of Malaysian restaurant, like that was one of the first few ones. Like, you're crazy, right? And so then, we opened Haymarket, fucking got slammed in a really, really bad way because we were confident. We thought, Ho Jiak's Ho Jiak. We were mentioned in media. We had queues for an hour and a half. Let's do this. We opened our restaurant, and for the first few days, we did like 16 people in a whole day at Chinatown.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was when confidence left.
What was the...
Don't know.
People never came.
People never came. It was dead smack in Chinatown. Everywhere else was busy. Like, we were only doing 16. 2-story restaurants. Me and all the chefs just waiting for the dockets. Lights and everything on the top floor was turned off. Fit out was nice. Everything was done. Just no business. No, and this was towards December as well. And we thought it would pick up. It would pick up. Didn't quite pick up. And then came to a point where I think 2 or 3 months into it, nothing's much changed. Luckily, we had Stratfield. Stratfield was paying for the rent, but we actually ran out of money, and we actually, it was pretty dark where we actually William and I had to go around. I had to borrow money from my dad. I had to borrow money from Roden, like the boys who helped out with the cafe. I was like, whatever you guys can, and they literally just like, here's 10 grand, here's 10 grand. Like, we literally just had to borrow money to keep it alive. And then for us, again, we had a choice of changing it back to the Stratfield concept, street food again. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe nobody wanted to pay for grandmother's food, right? But William just went, hang in there. Now we've got a little bit of this. We can hang in there for a little bit more. Let's wait till the new year comes along. Let's see. Let's hang in there, right? And then, true enough, just because of all those money that we got, we didn't do anything different. We just hung on to dear life, and just gave it time and believed in our vision, believed in what we wanted to do. And true enough, I think it was around March, I think it was March, an article about Ho Jiak Haymarket came out at Broadsheet. Business went, boom, okay. In April, article in Good Food came, boom, like that. And then in I think September, October, the people of Sydney voted, and they voted Ho Jiak as their favorite restaurant for, I can't remember what year. And that literally just took us from there all the way there. And ever since then, there's just been queues out the door non-stop. And so, again, then confidence came. But it took a long time, right? So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, yes, I have confidence. And then, of course, when the time is bad, your confidence drop. And you just got to hang in there. Be confident in yourself, be confident in what you do. Hang in there, go all the way. And then hopefully one day, confidence can go back up again.
What do you think why was there such a gestation period for the Haymarket store to find its stride?
For me, I guess people just didn't know cool. Yeah, for me, I thought, oh, we're good, we're big. No, you could. At that time, we walked out. Do you know Ho Jiak? Do you know we have another branch? No, I don't even know Ho Jiak. Like, what is Ho Jiak like?
Totally different demographic, right?
Totally different ballgame.
Strathfield's one area,
Yeah,
and then the Haymarket's totally different area.
totally
right?
different ballgame. And we were there. Down the street, there was Petaling Street. Down that way, there was Mamak. And down that way, there was Hawker by Mamak as well. So there were all these big players playing around. And to a lot of people, it was like, what's Ho Jiak? Who's Ho Jiak? They'll go queue up at Mamak. They'll go to Petaling Street. They'll go to all those other places, right? So, and again, they'll come in and like, oh, you don't have roti here? I said, no, my grandmother didn't sell roti. Like, you know, we have a cheng yuk beng, which is just steam pork with salted fish. Nah, that's not Malaysian. Nah, like, you know what I mean? They just didn't find the.
They want the McDonald's version of Malaysian food. Yeah, they want the roti canai. Yeah, interesting. And so then, how about this one? How did this one come about then, where we are in Town Hall?
So after that, as Haymarket was again, same things. It was so big, it was long queues, all that kind of things. I then go to William. I said, we've done the street food of Malaysia. We've done my grandmother's cooking. And again, throughout this whole time, your food is not traditional, your food is not authentic. Like that was the thing that I learned. They go, and that one we actually got hit quite hard because they're like, your food is not traditional, your food is not authentic. You call these grandmother's cooking, like for me, then it always come back down to like, is it delicious or not? That's why I call my restaurant Ho Jiak, right? Ho Jiak being delicious, right? Like, is it delicious or not? It's okay, but it's not traditional. It's not authentic. I just kept going around. So again, I got pretty fed up to the point where I go, you know what? I think I want to create my own take on Malaysian food rather than just doing the nasi lemak and the kway teow and this and that, and rather than I've already made my grandma proud. I've already done my home match. Like, how about me as a chef? Like, what can I create something? Can I be, innovative? Can I come up with food that, that people hasn't seen before, but still Malaysian and still, I guess, groundbreaking in a way, right? So this place, Town Hall, came up. We were pretty lucky that at that time, you will probably know, this used to be the Cuban place. So during uni days, like me and my wife, or the back then girlfriend, would come here for salsa and margaritas and all that kind of stuff. So we used to love this place. Then we got a call from the agent and he goes like, the Cuban place is closing down after like 20 or 24 years. I'm like, what? No way. And I was like, do you want to have a look at it? Like, maybe you want to, like, I heard you were looking for a restaurant. I'm like, okay, let's go. So we looked at this place and for me, it was just all because of the nostalgic event. I just wanted to take over the place. I've kept all the blues on the ceiling. I've kept the fans. I've kept, quite a bit from the Cuban place that I liked, right?
Yeah.
And so then, we sunk in 4 million into Ho Jiak Town Hall for this project, and it was meant to open October, I think. Yeah, October. Got delayed to December. This was in 2019. And that was the year that my grandmother passed away.
Wow.
My ama passed away. So throughout that whole time, I was actually I literally went back to Malaysia, spent 2 months with her every day by her side, cooking, caring for her until she decided to go. But again, at the same time, so she left in November, and then I rushed back here we were meant to open this place, but then again, it got delayed till, say, February. At that time, in December, news of COVID was starting to come out from Wuhan. Other countries were starting to go into lockdown. Australia was still good. We were still far away and we're good. But people were starting to panic, right? So January, February came along. Everyone was like, no lockdown, no nothing yet. Everyone was still being scared, but the streets were quiet. Business was starting to take the hits. And we're like, all right, we're ready to open? Nah, still delayed. So we finally, with all of the delay, we could finally open in April, I think. I can't remember the exact date, but it was 3 days before our first lockdown.
Yeah.
So on Friday, let's open Town Hall. We opened the doors, good lunch service, long queue, everything. And I think it was Friday afternoon, the government came out and goes, we're going into lockdown on Monday.
Yeah.
And we just went, oh. And and after that it was just the whole roller coaster ride of surviving the pandemic.
Did I guess in that sense, having a partner in William, what were the conversations like? It was like, shit, man, what are we gonna do?
Yeah. To be honest, prior to that, we talked about it quite a bit, and we were, in a way, more prepared than a lot of others, right? So in January, because like even in January, February, I was already telling him this is gonna come, it's gonna hit, it's gonna be hard. He started researching up the Spanish flu and all kind of things. He goes like, it's gonna take at least 2 years before we can even probably go back to like normal trading and all that kind of stuff again. And so then between that, before the whole panic and chaos came, we were actually going to banks and to all these different financial places to see whether we can secure a loan, because we've sunk everything in here. We knew that this time it was going to be different, where let's say back then Haymarket wasn't doing well, Stratfield was still doing okay, we could use the money to pump here. This time we knew that after sinking everything here into Town Hall, but all of this will actually die, it will actually all go down. So we needed a war chest, and so we all went out, got a couple of loans here and there, and then the moment it hit, it was a whole, I guess, at that time, very frightening, very scary, very everything. But then, I guess me being me, maybe dumb, but maybe have a hero complex or whatever it is. I tried to save as many of my employees as I could, tried to help them as much as I could. Lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Lost a lot of money. But we just hung in there. We did our what we lost in we did lose in money, but we still did a lot of good, right? Like we did a lot of good in the sense like we saved as many as people as we could. We had a lot of food that we were about to be thrown away. We cooked for, we just put food outside, whoever that wanted it. Slowly that became bigger. It came to a point where vegetable suppliers, meat suppliers and everything, they'd be like, all right, this whole, pork shoulder or pork belly is going to go off in 3 or 4 days' time, and I'm never going to sell it because it's COVID time. Like, do you want it? Like, can you use it for your charity meals? I'm like, yeah, sure. So we started building up, and it came to a point where even like it wasn't just like cooking for the people who needed it. It became like something where I could bring in my different chef friends to come in and to cook with whatever product that was donated, and when it wasn't donated, we would fork it out as well. And and to be honest, we did a lot of how do you call it? Like good humans work during COVID, and lost a lot of money.
Yeah. In terms of the war chest, like first of all, I think it's that was great foresight for you and William to be able to go and say, hey, we're going to need a war chest here, because we sunk all our costs into this business, and if it's going to impact all the businesses, so you don't have that lifeline. Did you guys have done based on the amount of money that you secured, work out like how long can you survive on that?
Yeah, yes, but also we worked out on what can we do, how can we pivot to survive. So with the war chest, we went and bought delivery vans, we went and bought vacuum machines, we went and bought sealers, we went and bought a lot of sous vide, like we bought a lot of things, like thinking like how we could pivot. And then when obviously lockdown came in, we were still allowed to go to work. That's what I actually did every day, just to come up with like a survival pack, or like try to think outside of the box. And so then with using the war chest to buy all that, we had a delivery system where we could deliver quite far. Delivery sales was okay enough to survive, but also then the products that we made, I call them my COVID babies. I came out with 8 products that actually went into the supermarket on the shelves.
Wow.
And so that helped. For me, it didn't make money, but it helped us survive. And every little bit, a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here, sort of like helped. Like, because everyone was like saying, oh, how do we go take away? How do we go take away? I just went, take away is not going to help you survive. Yeah. You're going to close your business down faster if you're just thinking about takeaway, which is what a lot of restaurants did. Like we had to pivot and change. And so again, and I guess that's when I started recording and filming, and so that's when the social media started to because everyone was stuck at home.
Yeah, they were watching.
Yeah, and so that's when that's when I guess again, like I said, what we lost in terms of money, we built in a lot of other different aspects.
Yeah.
And we built the brand, we built the team. Right. I want to talk about the team. That I was stupid to keep as many as I could because a lot of them were international students or skilled visa workers, and the government said if you couldn't afford, go back to your own country. I put a roof under their head. I tried to help them survive. What happened after COVID, if you remember, that a lot of people were like short on staff, right? Like labor shortage and stuff. My guys were ready to fight. So for me, it's more of like, when I lost money, I gained in a team. Like they actually saw how much they meant to me, and it works both ways. I took care of them. Now they take care of me. Yeah. So again, like I said, we lost a lot, but we also gained a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think there's no bigger investment than you can make is other than people. When you lose somebody out of your business, especially if they're an experienced operator, like sometimes, there are people that you need to lose from your business because maybe they just have a bad attitude, and that bad attitude can spread. Call them cancer in the business. But at other times, like having a skilled operator, you're almost always better to spend a little bit extra to retain that staff than having to start again and playing Russian roulette in terms of did you get the right person? Is this person going to be able to get up to speed, learn the right skills, and also stay with you long enough to actually pay it back, right? And so doing things like that, like you could sort of say it's an investment in people, but when it came to the other end of it, you're in a position where you're ready to fire. I was very similar. I was in the car business at the time, running a BMW dealership, and I said to all the guys that I want to try and keep as many people as possible. So it means we go on to a roster, we cut the hours down, we do all that sort of stuff, and we look at other opportunities. Whether it was like doing all the service pickups. So if we're not busy because people aren't walking in the door, let's go to the people and do what we can to try and keep the doors open. It was a very challenging time, and I left the industry for some different reasons, but it was one of those ones where the businesses that invested in their people throughout that time, that didn't have to let go of all the people, didn't then face the opposite effect when things started to come back, and it's like, oh shit, we don't have enough staff anymore, right? So I think that's a really, really strong position to put yourself in, and it also takes a lot of courage to do that, because the easy option was always to just let people go, right?
Yeah, but also it's funny because the companies that let people go, they're the ones who had money. I had no money, and I still just tried my best to keep as many, and then end up losing even more. And I think that's where the value comes in, where they realize it's not just about money. It's like, I actually really care about them, and instead of building up a team, I actually built up a family, a strong, close family where we're all together. Yeah, and we went through. I think the best way for me to put this is, we all went through the hard times together. Then, we can go through any other time, like good times, bad, whatever time it is right now. We'll all go through it together. Like, we're just so much stronger and tighter.
Yeah, as a result. When it comes to the fit outs, so obviously that would have been a bit of an experience for you, especially like going back to like the Papparoti days, right? Like, you have to then work out, okay, what are we going to do for our fit out? How do we want the aesthetic, the feel, the vibe of the place? Like, is there someone that you use for that, or is it like, how much involvement do you have in that aspect of the business?
Yeah. So every restaurant, we try to use a different designer and a different shop fitter. And the reason why is because then we get to go and we get to go through and we get to see the different ways of people working, because we're also learning. Yeah. Right. The one thing I did wrong with Papparoti was because again I needed to copy and paste, so I had to use the same fit out guy and the same designer, and it was like all the same. To answer your question, so when I hire a designer, they'll come up with the drawings. We'll have brand meetings, and we hire a branding team and all kinds of things as well. And then there's a lot of front and back where it goes like, do you approve of this? I go, no, I don't want this. Do you approve of this? No. So yes, I do say quite a bit of what I want in the design. And then obviously then when it comes to building, it's pretty much whoever that can do the best job. And by the best job, it doesn't mean the one that looks the best. The one that even after 4 or 5 years of running things, nothing's broken down. That's the most important thing. Yeah. And so again, because we're a high volume, high power kind of restaurant, and like the part that breaks down a lot of them, like you know straight away when the workmanship isn't that good, it will like break down. And what happens is you actually end up spending more money fixing it than to just pay and get a better builder at the start, right? So yeah, that's what we do. We use a different designer and a different builder for every restaurant, just to see, and then see which one is probably like, the best one, and hopefully in the future we can just, go with that person.
It's a good way to do it, because every builder and every designer has their own workflow.
Correct.
And so then you're also then learning about, what's important to you. Because I think, certain designers will ask you certain questions that maybe another one didn't. And you go, shit, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And it's also part of growing and expanding that. Back then, it would be like, oh shit, I didn't know that. But then now we actually have our own in-house marketing team and all that kind of stuff. And they're the ones that come up with most of the things that you just said, and they actually go to the designer, and we go like, what about this? What about this? What's missing? This? What about that? So then, I guess it comes down. By the time it reaches me, I will look at it like, hey, you know what? That's pretty good. Like, that's pretty good already.
You've got them tuned up. They know what you like.
But then again, yeah. So it all, yeah. It then depends on how fast they work as well, whether they can meet our requirements. But usually for these kind of things, I'm not too fast or worried about it.
Yeah. One of the things I also find interesting about your approach is that you're very open, with like your recipes and all that sort of stuff. Like, I think for a lot of businesses, they sort of view that as it's IP, right? Like that's our intellectual property. By giving it away, it's like, we're almost opening the door up for competitors. Yeah. What's your sort of mentality when it comes to that thing?
So again, for me, it's I take after this from my grandmother. It's I'm a pretty like her. I'm very, very generous. Like, I think generosity is one of the best things you can have. And for me, it's like if ever somebody asks me for something, you need help, you need this, you need that, I would just go, yeah, sure, why not? So I'm in a way, I'm also a yes man, right? I like to say yes to many things. So that's one part of the thought process. That's the part. That's the call me, where I'm generous. Like, you ask for anything, sure. You need a recipe to this, sure. You don't know how to cook this, you ask. The moment someone asks for help, I always try to help. So that's the core part. I guess the second part as well is where a lot of people think that a recipe is an IP, and like the recipe is their way and form of making money. Then I would say that no, it's not. It's just a small part of it. Like running a restaurant, there's so many more aspects, so many more elements to it. Just having a recipe, it doesn't, you can't. I can give you 300 recipes, but if you can't run a restaurant, the recipes are useless. I can give you 200 recipes. If you can't cook, if you can't follow it, it's useless too. So there are so many elements. I can even give you 100 recipes, but if your wait staff are rude and your customers don't come back, even though your food is fantastic, the recipes are useless too. So again, that's part of the thought process. I think it's more of like, it's who you are, the way you run things, and how people get to, I guess, follow your vision and all that kind of things, and then you make it work rather than just, a single recipe. Yeah.
Well, you've also got like and this is through experience, that you've developed a real confidence in what you do, right? Like, and when you have confidence in what you do, you're happy to share. Because at the end of the day, you don't take the knowledge with you. Like, when you die, it all dies with you as well. So, right. When you have that confidence, it creates this sort of openness that, you're happy to provide the information. It doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, like, for somebody to compete with you, it's not just about, like, imitation is not going to be a competitor to what you're doing.
Yeah, I think part of it, I wouldn't quite say confidence. For me, it's more of like, again, the core value or the principle. For me, and I always teach this because I see it all the time in my kitchen. Whenever a new trainee or whatever comes in, and my chef will just be like, yeah, you should just follow it. And I say, why aren't you spending more time teaching and training? For me, my core value, my core principle is teaching and training, or helping, teaching and training somebody else so that they can grow, so that they can be better. I think that is one of the best gifts you can give to someone, even to a stranger. It doesn't, I guess what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't really have to do much with my confidence. Like, even if I'm not confident at something, But if you ask me to teach you something that I'm not confident at, I will still do my best to teach you, because I think, again, we have kids, we have everything. We're trying to teach our kids to grow up to be, good people in the society and stuff like that. We're always trying to teach. We're always trying to educate. And so for me, teaching is, it's one of the greatest gifts. And so, if you ask me to teach, I'll teach. Yeah.
Okay. Just to switch things up a bit, I've got a couple more questions, and we're probably time anyway. But we sort of talked about scale, and we touched on the idea of exit strategies and things like that. But I'm just curious about for you, you obviously mentioned there's no pressure on your kids to want to have to take over anything. You don't want to operate that way. So, have you put much thought into then? What is your sort of longer term plan with all of this? And I'm curious about this just because I think a lot of people don't really think about an exit strategy. You sort of think about, I'm going to do this forever, but then it's like people change over time, and your priorities change and those sorts of things. So I'm just curious on a personal level.
Yeah. So personal level is obviously there's two ways of seeing it. The first way I see it, and I always tell my wife as well, like if I stop working, I'll die fast. I'll die young. I'm a workaholic. That's another core value of me. I love working, right? But then again, in terms of exit strategy, I think for me it's more so of like how can I get this business or this kind of restaurant to run without relying too much on me? And then again, it comes down to people, right? But then again, if the people can't do what I do, then it defeats the purpose. And so then how do I create maybe a system or a teaching guide so that they can do what I do? And so then again, we're in the stage right now where we're trying out. So that's why we have our own in-house marketing team. We have our own HR team, whatever. Like back then, it was just me, William, and 3 other employees. There was no HR team, no nothing. And these are things that we are learning and we're growing in the sense like, then you have your own HR team and there's so many different kind of contracts. You've got the lawyers, and so as we grow, hopefully for me, the exit strategy is not to get out of Ho Jiak, not to sell Ho Jiak, not to everything, but my exit strategy is so that it can run as smoothly and as efficiently as it can without me having to be in the business every day. And then from then on, I can spend more time with my family. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question that I was sort of curious about, when it comes to the social media aspect and things like that, do you ever get burnt out, thinking about content or creating content, or do you leave that to the marketing team? How does that sort of work for you?
Yeah, so I don't actually get burnt out because I actually create all of the content myself, in the sense that even when people come, all they do is they just, what I need help with is a cameraman and I need help with editing.
Yeah.
But the content I come up with, because I'm full of shit.
Yeah. You're happy to talk. You're happy to do everything else.
I'm full of shit, right? So that's why I never run out of things with the content. But I do get burnt out in terms of, say, filming.
Yeah.
A lot of hours in front of, say, camera or this and that. I do get burnt out with that. So that's why I try to space it out, in terms of social media So the in-house marketing team does all of the content for the business social media accounts. Whereas even for my personal one, back then I was quite active. Now I'm trying to do maybe one a month. That's it. So spacing out so that I don't get burnt out from filming too much.
Yeah. And then, so that's a good way to do it, because at the end of the day, it gets quite tiring, right? It's one of those things where it's another thing you got to think about, and then you got to think about the framing, then you got to think about,
For me, tiring is one thing, but it's more so of how much time it takes up, how much time it consumes. And for me, right now, my main priority is to try to spend as much time with my kids. So my eldest one is going to high school next year.
Oh, wow.
My second one is going to take a NAPLAN next year. And my youngest one just started year 1. And I'm at a position where I just came out from COVID, right? Back then, it was an excuse, but it was necessary as well. It was a necessity where I had to come into work 6 days a week just to make sure that my business doesn't go down. My dream doesn't get burned and destroyed because of a pandemic that I can't control. So I was working like a bull. Crazy. Everything, social media, content, cooking, blah, 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 or everything, working so hard. So now I think I'm at a stage where where time is so valuable to me and I can afford not to create content. I can afford to not be at the restaurant so that I can spend time with my family. So I think that's where the priority is.
Yeah. All right. One last little one that I thought to touch upon, because I think a lot of people go through this throughout their careers and in life, right? Like imposter syndrome, right?
Which one? What is it?
Imposter syndrome. You know, where you feel like you get to this point in life and you feel like, you know, shit, am I really this person, or is this am I an imposter, right? So, you know, I'm sure, like, you know, whether it was the cooking, whether it was like, you know, all these different things where it comes to business, or, you know, I'm just a little bit curious about, you know, for you, do you ever, even today, right? Do you ever still feel like, shit, am I doing well? Am I not? Like, do you ever get those doubts?
Doubts? I think no. I would say I'm like, even from back then, I'm fairly confident in myself and in like what I do. And I'm, again, like I told you, I'm so full of it. But it's the way I see it. Like for me, whenever I don't like things like I don't like to live life in regrets, or I don't like to see myself and have doubts. It's more of like, if this is what we're going to do today, we do it. If it's a mistake, we make it. Like, so there's no doubt we make it. If it's the right decision, we learn from it. If it's the wrong decision, if it's a mistake, we learn from it. And from then on, with that thinking, that's how we grow. That's how we can get better every day, bit by bit. And for me, it's just more of like, if every day I can just be 0.01% better than I was yesterday, right? Not just in terms of cooking, but in terms of as a human person, as a decision maker, as a father, if I can just be 0.01% better than I was yesterday, then in 1 year's time, I'll be 3% better than I was last year. Yeah. So it's the little things for me. It's just like bit. And so that, again, that's why I don't quite doubt myself, or I don't think I have that imposter syndrome.
It's funny. I say 1% better every day. You use 0.001. You go ultra low bar.
Should aim. What was it called? Shoot aim small, shoot big, or was it aim big, shoot small?
That'd be. Yeah, I guess that'd be aim small, shoot big. All right. I think we'll wrap it up there. People can obviously find you, Ho Jiak, Khoo Junda, I think is on Instagram.
Khoo Junda Khoo.
Yep. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate it.